Hello, this is Görkem Güngör. Today I will present the IPCC 6 Assessment Report, Chapter 10.3 of the Mitigation Workgroup 3 report on transport technology innovations for decarbonization. The application of clean energy carriers in the transport sector can be grouped as alternative fuels and engines, electric vehicles, and fuel cells and hydrogen as an energy carrier. The alternative fuels and engines, we can make a balance between technology and regulations because technology alone is not sufficient for acceptance and usage. So we need regulations, either soft regulations or hard regulations, so that these technologies can be adopted. The fuel consumption efficiency has been increasing in the last decade. However, it slowed down to 0.7% between 2016 and 2017. So we have come to the limit of fuel consumption efficiency for internal combustion engines. There are other technologies which are available, such as hybrid plug-in cars, electric battery vehicles, and fuel cell powered with hydrogen electric cars. We have different support mechanisms which can be used for these technologies. The first one is the tax incentives, as initially they are more costly than conventional internal combustion engines. By using taxes or tax cuts, they can be made more cost competitive. The emission regulations is another standard. As emission regulations are imposed on automobile manufacturers, they will shift their production to low carbon or zero emission engines. There are blending obligations for especially biofuel usage, as it is also more costly than oil fuels. Blending obligations provides an opportunity for using biomass in the transport sector. And with the wide adoption of the Green Deal, with European emissions trading system, and also the effort sharing mechanisms, there can be more widened acceptance of these technologies. There are also on the demand side other modes, options, such as shifting from private to public transportation, choosing freight rail and passenger rail for transportation, and moving to inland and international navigation, as increasing private motorized vehicles cause higher oil consumption. Changing the mode of transport would also have effect for mitigation on the demand side. Biomass is crucial as it is an available stock which can be used for decarbonization of various sectors. The cost of biomass feedstocks is important for competitiveness. Especially for the transport sector, regulations are required. For biomass, there is a high potential and there is an opportunity for cross-sectoral mitigation strategies. However, there are also constraints from energy, land use, and water use, as these are also require land and water resources for energy crops using biomass. There are databases which are available for usage. This one is the electric vehicles. Since the last couple of years, there has been a dramatic rise in the lithium-ion batteries. This rise is supported by carbon dioxide standards for car and van manufacturers, mandatory sub-target for advanced biofuels, fuel quality standards, and effort-sharing regulations which will be widened in European Union countries to include all emission streams and more stringent emission reduction targets. We expect that lithium will remain for a longer period in battery electric vehicles, and in fact, the market penetration of battery electric vehicles has stimulated overall car sales. Here in this graph, there's a modeling study where the competitiveness of battery electric vehicles is assessed by considering scenarios for biomass usage. Although still costly compared to internal combustion engines, there can be regulations and support mechanisms, especially affecting the price, the cost, so that battery electric vehicles could be more competitive. And as I mentioned, in the last couple of years, the sales of battery electric vehicles has also stimulated overall car sales. Another technology is fuel cells and hydrogen as an energy carrier. The fuel cells is more mature technology and it was developed in the 1970s, and it had seen improvements. However, still the technology is on a demonstration stage. There are restrictions such as the durability of the fuel cell vehicle, which is estimated at 2,300 hours, but competition with diesel fuel requires 10 times this durability. In the clean fuel market, there would be a competition between electricity battery vehicles and hydrogen fuel cells, as battery electric vehicles have penetrated to the market and their infrastructure on the grid is developing. There will be more competition against this technology for hydrogen fuel cells. And hydrogen has to compete in the gas sector against natural gas. There is still an increasing production and consumption of natural gas as a transition fuel, and hydrogen should find its place to compete with natural gas in the gas sector. And this competition requires lowering the costs and growing the commercial track record of hydrogen, developing storage and transportation technologies, infrastructure, and fuel standards for hydrogen, the development of certification, as for natural gas, there is a certification mechanism which has to be developed for hydrogen. And finally, end-user equipment conversion to support hydrogen as fuel is required. The article which I chose is related to the Circumpolar North Arctic Circle, where the transport infrastructure is crucial. As the climate impacts increase, there will be a retrieval of Arctic ice, which will leave the Arctic Ocean open to all kinds of maritime vessels. And this provides both potential and trade-offs for major cities in the circumpolar north. There are abundant energy reserves, but this region is under high climate stress. The communities are eager to develop climate future narratives. There are global and regional scenarios for climate change. However, these have to be downscaled to local scenarios by integrating with local knowledge. And this article focuses on a social workshop to explore these narratives by also using artistic representations. The steps start from global scenario framework, defining local scenario elements, structuring the skeleton of scenarios, fleshing them out, artistic visualization of these scenarios, and scoring of these scenarios by the participants. The scenarios are for Churchill in Canada and Kirkenes in Norway. They are separated to 4 major pathways. The first one is based on resources and industrial development. The second one is based on the transportation infrastructure by building a transportation hub. The third one is achievement of climate mitigation targets and benefiting from cultural tourism and natural livestock. And the last one is a dystopia where the community would turn into abandoned land or military outpost. And the respondents are asked how they perceive the future scenario to be, scaled in 5-level Likert scale, from definitely, going to mostly, moderately, barely, and definitely not. There are similarities and differences between Churchill and Kirkenes. The first 2 scenarios have wide adoption, such as the resource base and growing transportation hub. For Kirkenes, climate resilient future is selected with a higher acceptance rate, and the military outpost, the dystopia, is again a significant selection by the participants in Kirkenes. Whereas for Churchill, climate resilience and leaving the land has been selected by very few participants. And this article provides an oversight for local adaptive governance against climate change. Thank you very much for your kind attention.